Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review.
Upon further review,
And in this edition, we'll be talking about the Denver Broncos at the New York Jets. And this Week 6 matchup happens on October 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can catch that on your local CBS affiliates. So the Broncos are heading into this game with a record of 3-1, and the Jets are 1-4. The Broncos had a bye week in Week 4 after having started 2-1, and then they won in Week 5 to bring their record to 3-1. First, they won at home against the Colts and the Chiefs. Then they went on the road and they lost in overtime to the Seahawks by obviously a touchdown. And then after the bye week, they hosted the Cardinals and they beat them up pretty bad as they won by 3 touchdowns. And that was a very impressive victory for the Broncos, as the Cardinals have one of the better defenses in the NFL. But the Broncos came out with their best performance of the year so far, as they put up the most points that they've put up, 10 more than they had their previous best of the year. And for the Jets, they won their first game at home against Oakland, but since they've been 0-4. As they went on the road to Green Bay and lost to the Packers, and they had home games against the Bears and the Lions, and they lost. And then they went to San Diego and lost to the Chargers, as they were the first team in 2014 to be shut out. So already the Jets have already faced 3 out of their 4 NFC North opponents, but they're going against an AFC West opponent for the second straight week. It's not going to get much easier next week. They got the Patriots on Thursday night, but here against the Broncos, they definitely have their hands full, as the Broncos are more than capable of putting up points as it is so far. Peyton Manning's been coming out pretty strong in the first half of games. And then last week against Arizona, we saw what he can do when he actually keeps it going all game long. So they actually, like I said, put up 41 points last week in a very impressive win against Arizona. And that kind of gives you an idea of how this game could potentially go, is the Cardinals' defense is somewhat comparable to the Jets' defense. The Cardinals actually have better defense than the Jets, even though the Jets, they're not too bad at defense. Really, their shortcomings are on offense. They have a good run defense, but their pass defense isn't quite up to par. But let's actually go inside the numbers. And if we actually look at the offensive passing statistics, the Broncos are 3rd in yards per game in the NFL through the air. No surprise there. Peyton Manning had a record season last year. He got off to what you would consider a slow start by Peyton Manning standards, but by any other standards, he's been off to an all-pro start this year. The Jets, on the other hand, are the worst team in the NFL when it comes to passing the ball. They are 32nd in yards through the air per game. And then we look at the defense, pass defense. The Broncos actually, as good as they are at passing the ball, that's how bad they are in defending the pass. They're 23rd in the NFL in yards allowed through the air. Of course, part of that has to do is they get up to those big leads early, and then teams are forced to pass the ball for the rest of the game, and so they kind of unnaturally have a lot of yards given up against the pass. And in a moment we look at their run defense, we'll see that actually kind of does fall into place. The Jets are 14th in the NFL against the pass, and that's decent. It's middle of the road. But you got to definitely give the advantage, without a doubt, to the Broncos when it comes to their passing game. As I said, they're one of the best passing attacks there is in football, definitely in the AFC, in the NFL in general. Peyton's got plenty of targets. He lost a couple targets, but he gained a few targets. And as it is, Peyton doesn't really need the best receivers, and he's got a very talented group nonetheless. And he's got one of the better tight ends in football to throw the ball to as well. So now if you look at the running attacks of these two teams, the Broncos are 29th in the league when it comes to rushing yards per game. So they're definitely missing Noshawn Moreno. Monty Ball has been struggling with his average per carry. If we look at the Jets, though, the Jets are 6th in the NFL when it comes to rushing yards. Part of that is because of how bad they are with passing the ball, but they also have Chris Ivory and Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson is getting up there, but he's still very talented and can always break the big one. Chris Ivory also has that talent as well. If we look at run defense, though, both of these teams, that is the strength of their defense. They're strong up front in the trenches. Is the Broncos are 7th in the NFL when it comes to run defense, and the Jets are 6th in the NFL. So it's definitely a welcome improvement to the Broncos defense. And the Jets, they normally are a really good run defensive team, year in, year out. That's one of Rex Ryan's specialties. They're actually better against the pass this year than they were last year, because they definitely struggled last year against the pass. They were in the bottom 10 in the league against the pass, but they were in the top 5 against the run. When it comes to run the ball, without a doubt, you got to give the advantage to the Jets. And that's actually why, going into this game, initially I was gonna pick the Jets, but then I thought, better of it, and I'm going with the Broncos. But at one point I was thinking of making this my upset special, that the Jets would win this one in New York. Of course, it is in New York, and the Jets, where they do have a chance, is if they can run the ball and keep the ball out of Peyton's hands, and if their defense can come up with some turnovers somehow, some way, whether it's a forced fumble or if they can even get a pick, then that, gives them a chance. But let's look at the points, scored between these two teams and against these two teams. And the Broncos are 4th in the NFL with points per game, so they have no problem scoring, as Peyton can get them in the end zone, it seems, at will. The Jets, on the other hand, are the 3rd worst team when it comes to putting up points. They're 30th in the NFL, as they struggle to get in the end zone. They're lucky to even get a field goal. And when it comes to defense with points, the Broncos are 16th in points allowed, and the Jets are 21st. So the Broncos, they're not, they do let up some points. A part of that, though, is because they put up so many points. And as I was saying earlier, they get to those early leads, and then other teams are down against them. They're forced to pass the ball. They don't run the ball. So that makes the Broncos' pass defense look as if it's not as good as it is, and it makes the run defense look like it's a little better than it is. And then teams kind of get some artificial points late in the game when the Broncos are kind of playing back on their heels a little bit, because they've already got such a big lead. They don't need to really be, really pounded in the trenches. But with the Jets, either way, when it comes to the scoreboard, they got problems, and it doesn't look like those problems are necessarily going to be fixed anytime soon. Last week, they ended up pulling Geno Smith at halftime and putting Michael Vick in for the second half. Of course, Geno is going to be starting against Denver, and I think it was more a matter of how bad they were getting beat. They figured, hey, why not just put Vick out there? Maybe he'll get something going, and also to spare Geno, any more punishment in the game. But and maybe we'll see that happen again against the Broncos if it ends up being a similar type of game, and it very well could. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Broncos jump out to a quick lead, as they've been doing in this season to other teams. But the Jets, like I said, they could make this an interesting game if they can just, keep pounding the ball and not make mistakes and try to keep it out of Peyton's hands. But really, more likely the Broncos are going to win, and they'll probably win big. But don't be shocked if the Jets make it interesting, because it is in New York. They got a running game. They got defense. When you can run the ball, and if you have defense, you can compete even with a high-powered passing attack of the Broncos. So we shall see. That's what I think. I think the Broncos will win. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Very interested to hear your opinions. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did enjoy the show, make sure to hit the like button and let us know that you enjoyed the show. How else would we know? And if you want more of this content, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as we bring you upon further reviews as well as recaps for every single NFL game. We also do our show, The Wedge, And we also are doing coverage of the baseball playoffs and some college football. So keep an eye out for that. Once again, thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. Hope you're having a great day and a great weekend and enjoy all the sports.